Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Vibrotes, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Right.
Yeah.
Things have to be concise and precise.
Hey, we try to be organized, Don. Exactly right.
What?
How you
Well,
doing, Nathan?
Nathan?
Anything?
Can Nathan Oakley
guys-
hear us? Is he
Yeah, I can hear
able
you.
to
Can we hear
hear?
Yes, you loud and clear.
Welcome, Nathan Oakley, to Don Gio's meeting. We're gonna have an interview today. We're gonna figure out if the sextant works on a sphere or a flat plane.
Things that will hit more than
The sextant doesn't work according to Panic because it doesn't produce any cyclical energy.
Ah,
So it doesn't do any work on either model. Oh, plus models of
That's-
reification.
that was funny. Because I said that 3 times. Now 4. Did you miss it?
You know when,
Did you get
you know
it?
when people get really sleepy and then they're delirious?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like.
Very much so.
Sounds like delirium's kicking in.
With me? No, man. I'm only getting about a few hours of sleep.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, Don Gio, if you had to, like if you were forced to, by either your philosophical position or somebody holding a gun to your head, to synthesize the paradoxes between the flat Earth and globe Earth, how would you do it?
Reverse engineer.
Uh,
I would say gases do indeed curve, but I won't explain why.
I would just say that it's
There's the paradox. Just saying,
I would
not
just say that
explaining
it's-
why.
Oh, yeah. So you would just restate it rather than come up with a synthetic explanation.
Pretty much. Just do what Satan does, right? Hijack
Do-
things.
Let's
I mean,
see.
just he just hijacks stuff, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah.
DASD.
But you notice the trend?
So it's DASD. Do as Satan does, right? That's what you're saying?
There you go.
Yeah. Oh boy,
Get a bumper sticker and make those. DASD.
that's funny. That is funny.
It's
Well,
horrible.
if you're listening to True Loon, Don, he basically said, from an interior observation within the universe,
Yeah.
right, from your subjective point of view, you can't obviously see the entire universe, whatever it is.
Right.
Therefore, it's only from a subjective point of view. And
Yeah.
if I could show you math, right, that works on any subjective point of view,
Right.
then you really are just picking one over the other philosophically. But if you were forced to say all these subjective point of views are indeed reality and all real at the same time, how could you balance that? Well, the only way you could balance that is to say
hold on. Let
that
Don answer.
individual reality is rendered.
Hello. Do you want to let,
Go ahead.
rather than asking and answering, wouldn't it be more amusing if Don answered?
Yes, it would.
Maybe. Maybe. He would
Clearly
have to
not.
repeat that all over again because he kind of lost me.
Yeah, I was going to say he hasn't been paying attention, Citation Police, so you're going to have to ask and answer your own question anyway, so I'm really sorry to interrupt.
Exactly. That's why I was doing it.
Poor show Don. Should be keeping up.
But this we actually seen this coming 5 years ago when all these arguments started coming out.
Well, actually, that's why I was going to ask Nathan. That's why I joined. What did you think of Truelon or Truelon? His claim.
Oh, yeah,
it's great. I've turned that into.
Finish what I'm saying.
Yes, it was great, and I've turned it into 3 videos so far. Even though I'm feeling like crap today, I've spent a significant period of ever since I got up, editing that down into 3 videos. One of which has already been semi-published as a premiering stream with a trailer, so you can go and check that out now. And it was very eye-opening. It's so useful to have these things discussed in conversation in that regard. So we're detailing how all of the different models that he's detailing, according to him, start with the spherical Earth. And we're pointing out that no, you start with a celestial sphere and a flat plane to get to your globe to then derive all of these different models. So you can say, well, it can be whatever you like. No, it can't, because all of them started with flat Earth elevation angle measurements. Therefore, all of them are derived from a flat plane. Well, that was only divulged, gone over, however you want to describe it, because that glober came in and showed us all of his models that he said you could model Earth anyway. Off a sphere, wrong. Off flat Earth elevation angles. So very useful. Trimmed it down to lots of videos.
Nice. Hostile witness. You got to bring them in sometimes, right?
Well, the best bit, which is what ended up being the trailer, was Brian. So Brian went through a super concise summary of angle to Polaris measurement off a flat plane and laboured it with the guy. And it was so good that I used that, a couple of, stuttery stammers aside. It was excellent. So I used that as the trailer. That's on the 3-minute part of the premiering stream. If you go and look at it now before it premieres on Saturday, it's just Brian going through his description for the guy of how you need a flat plane to measure elevation angles to Polaris.
That was excellent by Brian.
It was.
Yeah,
I was in awe when I was
editing
editing it. I really was going, wow, Brian, this is awesome. I must use this as the trailer.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, wow,
hoping.
he's really hitting it.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to upload that. I was like looking for it. I kept looking over and over. I was like, dang, where is the show for this? I was like, where is it at?
Well, the show itself has been published on my second channel. It's the one that's got a weird looking up and downy kind of crazy shape on the thumbnail. And I think the title is It All Must Be Flat, or It All Starts Flat, or something like that. That's the mainstream. But that has been published yesterday on the second channel.
Let me tell you something about Brian. If you don't interrupt him and nobody says a word, he gets some really deep stuff out, and it's perfect.
So stop interrupting him. What's your problem?
Right. So I learned it. I talked to him. So I try not to, when Brian's talking, I just try to listen, because if you interrupt him, you will throw him off.
Yeah, he goes nuts. Now, obviously, if I knew Brian better, because I don't know Brian that well, I mean, I'm well acquainted with him, but I wouldn't call him a mate. No offence to you, Brian, I just don't know you well enough. But by the same token, if he was, that's the kind of thing that you could poke at. A bit like with Arwin, who I definitely do consider a mate because I've met him and known him a long time. But that would be something that as mates you'd poke him about, right? You'd do it intentionally.
Yep.
And you'd figure out crafty ways of making it seem like you are actually helping his point along when all you're really doing is interrupting.
No, you could listen. You could poke at Brian. Just, you got to know when he's got a really serious point that he wants to get out. So I've learned how to get through that, and I know when I could hit him and when just leave him alone. He's getting through something here.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You got nice.
Say again, Don.
I said nice. I found it now. You got it all up and everything.
Yeah, the full stream.
I just
Obviously,
posted it for you too. Okay.
Well, it's several hours
nice.
long, so you might want to sit through several hours of it. But I have trimmed it down to the main bulk of it is a 25-minute video, and then obviously as you're editing this stuff, you get more concise as you edit it. So it's useful to sort of start with a 25-minute chunk from 3 hours, and then go back and concisely get that down to 9 minutes, which is what I've done, and then concisely trim out a trailer, which is 3 minutes. Obviously, that is progressive in terms of how it's done, but I doubt many people listening to this will say, oh, yeah, I'll sit through a 3-hour video. But they might well sit through a 25-minute video or a 9-minute video, or at the very least the intro to the premiering stream, which is out on Saturday.
Right. I remember when I stumbled upon you and QE, I used to listen to your guys' show while just laying down in the background. So, yeah, there might be some that will sit back and listen to it. But, yeah, chop it up. But the hostile witnesses, somebody that's a Glober and making that such claim, I had to bring him in the show.
Good job. And I knew you said Glober, and I would say, no, he's not a Glober. I know when.
Yeah, he's definitely
First of all,
a Glober.
you didn't even have to introduce him as a Glober. I would have pinned that sucker right out. Now Nathan, on the other hand, he's getting a little sloppy. 0 for 2.
Now, you sound like Nathan's your mate.
I already gave this excuse. So it's because I've got a bit, is it apathy, a bit less of it?
Just not sharp enough, Nathan.
It's not sharp.
What happened to the word lazy?
Why care?
Yeah, but that's it. Why care? So when people start talking, I honestly no longer assess whether or not they're a Globie or not immediately, as I used to. As time progresses, people start discussing it. I'm like, oh, well, he's a reasonable guy, so obviously not a Glober, because that's the only consideration I've given it at that point. Now you're like, no, I heard him say globe in a certain tone. Well, I've kind of stopped doing that, if I'm honest, because I care a bit
I can't
less.
help it.
Yeah, I don't kind of blame you, actually, but it's just his stance. He said he's still a Glober. He still thinks it is such, so that's pretty much where I go from there.
And he's perfectly entitled to. Everybody's entitled to their globe belief. One of the only times I've been conciliatory with Tim Osman was when he confessed that his globe belief was just that. I'm like, good for you. Everyone's entitled to their belief.
I agree. 100%.
If you want a belief, yeah, you're entitled to it. If you want the truth, then, you'll step away from your belief.
Well, you'll need a flat plane for that, if the truth that you're talking about is in relation to the surface of Earth. Elevation angles prove it's flat, and you'll need them to derive any model of Earth from there on.
If you get real strict with the word, no one could say you're really on the ball anymore.
Boom, boom. So, John, you got a mention, or you got your bit in that particular clip. So when he's describing the starting point of a sphere Earth, you step in and go, that's not what you did. You started with a flat plane.
Epic.
It was a really good show.
Yeah, that's part of the cognitive.
Go ahead.
Yeah, part of the cognitive relief that people get from exercising this, and this happens, we've seen this happen since this began when they have a contradictory position where they're arguing whether it's knowledge or belief, is they want to get you as well to concede that what you have is a belief. So it's like, okay, we both have beliefs, and therefore it's equal between us. So you have your flat Earth belief, I have my globe Earth belief, we're all just believing around here, now everything's cool.
Yeah, it's
and
a
if they
stalemate.
can at least posit that idea in their own mind, right? If their own mind believes that proposition, they can then just be like, okay, everything's cool, nothing to see here, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when he came in and stated that, the math doesn't prove the Earth to be a globe, that right there is just, what a hostile witness. That's all I got to say.
No, that's a man on the fence, but that's a man who's gone from globe belief to build up a little fence that says you can't prove it in any way, shape or form. He's come here to say, well, really, guys, you can't prove it either way. All of the models can be derived from a sphere model. And we've gone, no, to get your elevation angles to Polaris, to derive your 60 nautical miles or whatever it is, that took elevation angles off a flat plane. And when you depict it, you show a flat plane at the centre of a celestial sphere and call it the globe. Well, it isn't, because the measurements are coming from the centre of that depiction. Now, you might call it the centre of a solid rock, but in reality, it's just a flat plane looking up at a perspective view of the stars. And the perspective view you're getting is on a flat plane. Must be to measure any elevation angles. So it's game over. They've got nothing. Their model started with a flat plane.
Yeah, that's like saying I could build walls, a ceiling, and everything, but I don't need the floor. And I could do it without the floor. I could just put my walls up, my ceiling up, everything will be okay. I don't need a floor. And by the way, Charles is looking for friends, Nathan. He's in your chat, desperately seeking friends. I think he's seeking 10th man out.
Actually, as you're talking, I loaded a screenshot of yesterday. So go to Master B and pull up the screenshot, Nathan. That's funny. Just as you were talking.
Okay, so
Well, here's the thing. I've been
Hang
asking
on,
some Globers.
Hang on. All right, so yesterday's show, I just happened to have some time and jumped on, and Neil was there, a few others were there, and Flat Earth Math was there. So this is just part of the conversation. So he says here, Flat Earth Math, 10th man, a bubble sextant doesn't assume any shape of the Earth. It simply measures angle of elevation from a horizontal, regardless of Earth shape. You scroll down to T. Brown. T. Brown goes, see, Charles, just conceded again that the baseline from the observer to the GP is a horizontal plane. And then I respond, flat baseline has no business on the globe, except that's the only way a sextant can work to achieve an angle 90 degrees. Bye-bye, globe. You keep losing, FEM, Charles. I mean,
yeah, it's describing not needing a shape to measure an elevation angle off a flat plane with horizontal. No, you don't need a shape, but you do definitely need a flat aspect to do that. You don't have to convert that flat aspect and angle measurement into any model and any shape, but you will definitely be doing that with an R value that you need, Charles, and you lie about. Meanwhile, we're measuring the elevation angle as you detail off a flat plane. No shape required, no globe required.
He keeps saying he'd show me where he lied. I told him, I said, Charles, I'm tired of showing you. If you don't understand it, somebody else show him, because I give up.
they're confusing.
I think.
Well, go on, John.
Well, I was going to say his name's Flat Earth Math. He obviously understands that you have to start with the flat Earth, or his name would be Globe Earth Math.
Yeah,
Right.
I never thought of that.
They're stuck with words that allow them to weasel in and out of things. So they'll say horizontal. Okay, they don't want to say baseline. They don't want to say level. They don't want to say straight. But if you go look in the dictionary or anything that describes the word horizontal, those are all synonyms of it.
Correct.
So it's the same thing. Just now, if you got a horizontal, and that is your adjacent to the baller holding a sextant, well, welcome to flat Earth. That's what we're saying. Just because you get it from the eye line when you don't have to do dip correction, because you got a bubble sextant, which allows you to do it from your eye line, or a artificial horizon, which allows you to do it with your eye line. That's why there's no dip correction. And that was part of yesterday's back and forth as well. I kept bringing them back to, why do you do dip then? So the only one that requires dip, and the dip trap works so good, they're still stuck in it. They have no idea what kind of quicksand they walked into. Because the reason you do dip in the ocean is because you don't have it to your eye line. Yeah, you're shooting the horizon and you're 14 feet above it on the boat. So you got to bring it down to sea surface and imagine your eyes on the sea. Now you can say at any part, it could be at your knees, it's horizontal. It could be at your waist, it's horizontal. Oh, I'll bring what I just did on the surface to my eyes and say, that's where I'm. No, you had to take it down to the sea surface. And now it's all parallel, no matter if it's at your knees looking straight out, or at your eye line, or at the bottom of the boat all the way to the GP. And by the way, a triangle, a right triangle, has 3 vertices. It's got to be straight.
Yeah,
but check this out. When you're looking out in your optical field of view, which is how all optics see, right? The horizontal in your periphery, which is left to right, okay, you could see that as like a horizontal line or a straight line, however you want to describe it. But on the z-axis and the y-axis, which is into the distance and elevation, right? But the z and the y-axis render in all optics as the same axis. So if you're above horizontal, you'd have to have an angle downward to reach any intersection on the horizon, right? Because you're above it.
Yes.
And so when you flatline it, right, you end up with two parallel lines. And then you have to merge them to get your altitude off horizontal. So you're just taking the sideways horizontal, turning it straight to you, and lowering it to the ground.
Yes, that's dip correction, correct. But what Charles Flat Earth Math is detailing is something quite the contrary. So where they have a seeming out, incorrect out, but there we go, they describe dip as being the dip to the geometric horizon that only exists in maths. But when you use a bubble sextant, you don't need to make that correction. You've just established a horizontal and that's all you need to do. There's no correction needed. As is conceded here by Charles. A bubble sextant doesn't assume any shape of the Earth. Open square brackets, including globe, close square brackets. It simply measures angle of elevation from a horizontal, regardless of Earth shape, open brackets, not requiring a globe, close brackets. Smiley face. Yeah, that's right, Charles. You don't require Earth to be a sphere to take an elevation angle. You require a flat plane.
Just keep coming, don't they?
Hey, Nathan, how you going?
Hey, Brian, good to have you. I used your
Thanks for
chunk
having me in.
from that guy's video 2 days ago, trolling. You did such a good job of summarising elevation angle measurement to Polaris and derivation of R and a globe thereafter, that became the trailer. So I was in awe. I've got to be honest, while I was editing, I was like, wow, Brian, this is awesome. So it's become the trailer. You.
Excellent. I'll have to go listen to it. I didn't hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job, Brian. I agree. I concur.
Thank you, Neil.
Can I do a quick
Thanks a lot, bud.
quick straw poll? So people in the server and in G+ for that matter, I just want to assess feelings, which is something we don't typically discuss because it would be fallacious if we're trying to discuss other people's feelings on this matter when we talk about our opponents. But we're all here, right? So I can actually ask the flat earthers who are here how they perceive the situation of flat Earth. Are they happy with it? Are they stressed about it? I just want to get a general idea of the emotional level of the flat Earth side of the argument that I'm exposed to, i.e. you here right now. So who wants to start?
Say it again, summarize what you want us to do.
I want to find out how people are feeling about the whole thing. So at the moment, just as an example, I'll start. I feel very confident about the position I'm in terms of the assessment of the nature of the world that we're in. Therefore, I'm not stressed about it. I'm not concerned about any arguments coming up that are going to throw me off. There's nothing that I'm worried about. As a result, I'm actually pretty laid back and calm and cool. Although, for dramatic effect, that's not necessarily the perceived case on the show. But you know what I'm getting at. It really doesn't bother me. Once the show ends, I don't give Flat Earth much more thought. So, I'm cool. Now, I know our opponents aren't, which is why I want to rub this in their faces, presuming that everyone's of a similar opinion to me, which is, I'm cool about it. No stress. I'm good. Flat Earth's ace.
Okay, I'll start.
I feel like I got off the... Oh, sorry.
Go on, Ted.
No, go on, John. I'll go after you.
Okay.
I go after.
So, Ted,
Well, me and Brian was kind of talking about this yesterday.
Okay, you, then Brian, then me. Go.
Yeah, so John, then Brian,
No,
then 10th, then anybody from Discord. So go ahead, John.
No, it's John 10th, then me.
Get about poor little old Neil.
That hurt my feelings, Brian.
Okay, let's try that again. In no particular order, other than the very specific order I'm going to lay out now. John, go ahead.
Me and Brian was actually talking about this yesterday after the show. I kind of feel like I got off the Titanic a few minutes before it hit the iceberg.
Wow, that's a visual.
So what you're saying is, before the demise of globe Earth was overt, you jump ship, and you feel that was the right way to do because it was about to hit an iceberg. Yeah, the iceberg is the reason I'm so laid back. That's why I think there's devastation coming over 21 and 22, or has come in 21 and is coming in 2022. So, yeah, there's an iceberg that the globe's hit now. We're describing how the globe requires a flat plane. Just listen to that one more time. The globe requires a flat plane. That's a pretty devastating decision.
It used to be such a monolith too, just like the Titanic. It was the unsinkable shit. That's what I thought for a long time.
Yeah, just because I was mentioned there, I'm not going to speak in 10th place, but John ordered a helicopter just before the iceberg turned up.
That's a paradox. There's no helicopter shops on the ship. Anyway.
All right, I'll go.
Go ahead.
I'll go. Okay. Well, I am just breaking into all of the avenues of the research that I started over 2 years ago. And there's more to this story that hasn't even been shown, that hardly anyone, maybe one person knows. So when it all culminates with my final, when I say this is my final, then you know what the whole thing was about. But I haven't even come close to that because I've just ordered 2 more books. My resources are growing in volumes. So when the show is over, I'm still researching, but I'm not worried about it. I'm actually finding from their own books all the things that destroy them. So I'm finding all these little nuggets, and then I wait. Like yesterday, Charles in chat, now it's a record because he put it in chat, says things, and I go study what he says. And I say, oh my gosh, this is exactly what he's doing. And the book says this. So I got him here. So the more they talk, the better for us. And there's just no way around a lie, because when the whole thing is based on a lie, and we got it down so tight, I said section can't work on the globe with curved baselines. Huey put it together with a wonderful argument. So how can you get a vertical angle, elevation angle with a curved adjacent? Same thing, but nicer. And now they're all stuck on that. So now all the traps are being popped because now they got to lie about this because they can't answer that. Then that lie is followed by another lie. So this is going to be fun for us. So after the show's over, I'm in research mode as soon as I get done with the farm work, and I'm loving it. But no stress.
I'm stress-free as well, regardless what Nathan says. I know he's just ribbing me. But the only problem is I have a teenager that pokes me every night at dinner. But I've been cool about it. At first, I got to be honest, when I first got into the flat earth, I got in so deep that when certain things would come out, I'd be like, oh, shoot. Now I got to be looking like an idiot. But now at this point, with the proof of the sextant and the elevation angle, how it can't be acquired on a sphere, I'm fine. I'm good.
Right. So this argument has led you to relief. Thank you, Brian. I mean, Neil. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, for me, what I'm at is I'm constantly coming up with new angles to take them apart with. And not that I need to anymore, not that it's needed for us, but because of their lack of concession and their nasty behaviour, and they're just all around general low-life behaviour a lot of them portray, and the trolling they do on me, I revel in kind of like what Tent does. It's like research, but I'm putting things together. I'm in the shower, I'm putting things together in my head. I'm doing exercise, I'm putting things together in my head. I'm cooking food and putting things together in my head. I never stop. It's like constant. I just turn it off for when I go to sleep, and it's all like the whole thing is based on if these people are going to continue to be nasty and to be low lifes, right? I'm not saying they all are, but there's a lot of them do, and unfortunately, ones that were okay became low lifes. I just like, if you want to be that way, I don't mind playing that game, but it's going to be much more sore on you because you don't have any arguments that matter. You just have tactics. So I'm kind of revved up. I'm revved up, and there's good things coming in the future. I'll put it that way.
Cool. Right, anybody from Discord got an opinion on how they're feeling at the moment, as it's the only way we can get these things without being fallacious? Tell us all about it.
One deck.
Go on, one deck.
Yeah, I recently, a few years ago when I got into Flat Earth, I did find myself getting into debates with these anti-Flat Earthers on purpose and finding myself getting wrapped up because I didn't know the full argument and I didn't have the knowledge. Having came back into it recently and found myself with you guys and listening to what you're saying about the Black Swan and the sextant argument, I've recently recontacted some of these guys, these anti-Flat Earthers, who are mainly on Instagram platform, but they're quite the typical anti-Flat Earthers. And I'm just testing myself now since being on your show and learning off you guys. And I'm finding it pretty easy now just to keep them quiet, and they've got nowhere to go regarding where's your R value. They need an angle and bringing it back to the angle and the sextant. And I mean, they come out with a load of nonsense, but I'm just sticking with that and just they don't know where to go with it.
Okay, so you're testing the arguments on anti-flat earthers and finding it's a breeze and you haven't got a great deal to stress about. Yeah, it was a long time ago that I felt the need to do that. But same with Brian's description. You know, I can remember about a year ago talking about having ideas of what I'd do on the show in the shower. And yeah, as much as Neil wants to imply that I'm just not sharp enough at the moment, no, it's not the case. It's just I'm not dedicating the time that Brian is to it, which is why I'm in awe when Brian does. It's like, because I'm not. Yeah, I'm utilising my skills to edit it and make it a nice presentation, but that's a different skill set to, you know, the logical descriptions and the consistency that Brian offered a couple of days ago. You know, that's something that may never come back to me because the passion for that bit has just gone, because it's like, well, we've won. Why be passionate about... I'm not knocking you, Brian, by the way, by saying this, but why have that passion when we've already won? But if it wasn't for Brian's passion, I wouldn't have been able to trim out those 3 videos this morning and present it in such a concise way to an audience. So it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other and all the rest of it. Anybody else from Discord?
Going to keep hacking them up.
What was that?
Anybody else from Discord want to express their opinion in terms of their emotional mindset in regards to Flat Earth at the moment?
Flat Earth one.
Go on, one of you. Go on, Righteous.
I just wanted to say Flat Earth one. I feel the same way as you, Nathan. I feel really stress-free. You know, prior to a lot of these arguments, you know, it was an argument, but the argument's over. They've got nothing left. We've destroyed them literally on every aspect of science and their belief system, and now we're we're ready for truth revealing.
Cool. Go ahead, Righteous.
Well, I was gonna say I was like you too. I'm not really looking into FE anymore either. I remember when I first started, I was like 247 looking at this stuff, but then I kind of wound it down pretty quick, and then I was just kind of relegated to like just sticking out with this crowd. And then after a while, even now, I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just relaxed. I'm focusing on other things more now. So yeah, but I still enjoy like what you guys are coming up with and listening.
Cool. Anybody else? Don Gio?
Yeah.
Citation Police?
Same. Go ahead, Citation.
You should go first.
All right. Yeah. Same here. I'm not into it as much anymore. I find magnetism, though, electrostatics, all the other stuff, a little more interesting, and God, seeking Bible truth and other stuff outside of it. But still listening, yeah, sure. Same thing what Righteous said at the end.
Fair enough. So it's expanded out your horizons, metaphorically speaking, and your fascination with Flat Earth was keen and right up there, like whoever it was that discussed it a second ago, looking at it 24/7. But now it's like, well, there's other subjects, but it's still fascinating to hear the Globers get a pummeling, right?
You know what? I've realized lately, especially, a lot of new people have been joining the server, and they're even like a younger crowd, and it's just it kind of reminds me of how much, how many people are still though stuck on, you know, the indoctrination and the constant pushing of the ball, and they come on here and they like laugh, oh, you guys are flat earthers, like kind of like trolling, and on Discord at least, and it goes to show you, like, even though, you know, we come here every day together with the same people, so maybe we're a small group in comparison to how many younger, you know, the generation of them, there's thousands of them that still are stuck in that brainwashing. So maybe it's like more important, even though we're maybe getting more lax because we've, you know, been to the arguments over and over and over for the past few years, but it's still important to remember that to continue explanations and the defeat. You know, like you're saying, we won. You know, there's no longer an argument, but there still is an argument because there's many people that know nothing about any one of the arguments that we have shared here on Discord. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. So 7 years ago, I studied this subject and went, this is an evergreen topic. This will stick around for as long as the heliocentric system sticks around. How many people in the Western world believe in a heliocentric system? Well, pretty much all of them. So it's an evergreen subject as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I totally agree.
And
Very
after,
true.
remember, even after,
Absolutely.
it's going to be sticking around.
All right, I'll go next.
Go ahead.
All right, so this idea that flat Earth won is only in the context of a particular argument.
Hold on, you're breaking up. Citation, please. You're breaking up.
Remember,
You're breaking up.
All right, let me take a quick turn, and then maybe citation is good by then. You know how long it took for like the Black Swan argument to get refined and refined? And now the sextant argument, I thought the sextant argument wouldn't be that long at all. And it's like going and going, and I'm actually still learning to my surprise. Like there's still, in 10th man, is like, this is like not even close to being over. And that made me realize, I'm like, oh my goodness, like if there's that much depth in just like this, I think about like the depth in other things in this life that people are just looking at the surface level. And what I have in particular in mind that I wanted to lead to is like things like God's word. I mean, that's like an entire book. And people just skim the surface of it and they think they got it all figured out and they just move on with their lives.
If I can
So
comment
that's
to
kind of what I
Righteous.
wanted
Well,
to say.
let's just try citation, please, next, because he was having mic issues. Can you just say hello, citation, to see if it's okay?
Hello.
Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, the idea that the other guy commented that flat Earth is won is only in the context of a particular argument. They didn't win a victory over the whole social climate. You know, just like in the Matrix, Neo was described by Morpheus that everyone who's in the system serves the system because they rely on the system, and they're always the enemy. And the system is just a representation, a simulation. Now, in our world, it's a simulation of ideas, right? And so these ideas is what creates a common reality that people believe they live in. Whether they know it or not is irrelevant. So what they've done in the past and what they did in the Matrix is they put out a thesis, right? Then an antithesis, and then it heads towards synthesis. So it's basically just a system of control that's updating the overall system that they're going to use to control everyone. So it's not going to be that everyone just says, okay, now we agree the Earth's flat. No, they're going to synthesize the two models, quote unquote, into a new model that becomes a socially agreed upon norm because it's functional in the society that has the quote unquote control over you.
Right.
So I'm delighted that I've been allowed to see some of the code behind the Matrix, that I've been allowed to see like the architect's room where the architect explains how he designed the system. You know, he tells Neo, guess what, Neo? You were told you're the one. Guess what? I created the one so that you would do what I want you to do. And so I'm so excited that we, at this period of time, we get to see behind the curtain, and we get to watch synthesis happen in front of our eyes. And let me finish. And we get to be aware that it's happening, and that makes me happy and fulfilled.
Yes, but what you're describing, if it's comparable to the Matrix, would be that the system itself is making the change. Now, you're describing that by way of consensus agreement being fulfilled after a given period of time. And I agree, that's what will happen. But at the behest of the people who are in charge of the system. So if there's a matrix change, everyone accepts the change because the system has installed the change into the system that everyone's a part of. So in this respect, we're just part of that change that was probably already predetermined to occur anyway.
Absolutely.
Can I
and
say something?
You know, like if you've watched the Matrix, you know, like the people that quote unquote got out of the Matrix and went to Zion or went to Io in the recent thing. It's like they perceive their life as having more truth and therefore more freedom, yet they kind of live in a lesser state than the others.
Yeah.
But they're more fulfilled from their own point of view because they believe or they do know what they perceive to be the truth. And in a lot of ways, that's very fulfilling for an individual.
Absolutely.
Before Brian goes, let me comment on
Brian.
Righteous. No, before he goes. Righteous, the argument's over. The sextant, the way it came out, is done and over. You can't get an elevation angle with curved adjacent. What is coming out is all of the sidebar arguments to their foolish, flimsy responses that will be the same defeat for them. So the argument's over. Yeah, we don't live on a curved Earth because the sextant wouldn't work. So it's like watching films of a game that they keep losing, and we see, oh, after they lost, they went there and threw a chair at the coach in anger, and so it's like it's those kind of things because we're uncovering the other lies.
And the thing about this, it makes it more easier for the audience to understand more and more. The more we go through this, it seems like, because at first I didn't really understand it as much, but as we keep going through it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's becoming more and more clear. So that was like my focus on it. It was like it was becoming more clear, even though we're going over the same things. It seems like, in a sense, we're like not. There's like still more things to pull out of certain things.
Well, I got one more slide for Nathan.
Oh, Brian's been waiting in the wings for about 5 minutes now. Go on, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I just want to say that something I didn't really say there when you asked me earlier about how I feel. And it's going off the back of what I heard other people say. I think it's more important that we're more revved up now as opposed to less revved up. It's good to be relaxed, but I think it's more important to be more revved up now, because the reason I say that is the reason I'm more revved up. I get more revved up. I'm a positive thinker. Even when I'm losing, I still won't give up. And eventually I'll win. We're winning now. And we basically won against the opposition. It's not over yet, but we have won. It's just, when I say it's not over yet, it's just a case of dealing with them. We have to break away from them, but also keep them under control and keep them, basically keep them in check. That's what we have to do. But we have a bigger hurdle now, and that is, the bigger hurdle is the greater world, basically, that we will have to deal with.
Right.
I'm not saying we should.
Go on. Sorry.
I'm not saying we should, I'm not saying go out and start being on the streets with placards and all this nonsense. I'm saying there is no way around it. We're going to have to deal with the bigger world out there. Eventually, we're going to be, all the people that have been involved in this and were in this argument for the past few years, they're going to have to deal with the bigger world out there and deal with a lot of nonsense. And that's why I think we should we should be relaxed, but we should be more revved up.
Okay. Go on, Righteous.
And I was just basically to continue my thing with the 10th. Like, you know how recently Father of a Stolen Child said, you're going to need a flat plane for R? And Nathan's always like, wow, we're getting this faster and faster and faster. That's kind of like what ties in with what I was talking to a little bit. Like, it's becoming, the more clear it becomes, the more you're able to, like, slice it so many more other ways. Or I don't know. I'll just leave it at that.
No, we're saying.
I think you're
Hold on, Neil. Hold on.
No.
Hold on. So I've got your slide up 10th. We've only got a couple of minutes. Did you want to go through the slide?
Yeah, it's a real simple slide. Righteous, I was agreeing with you. I'm just saying all those side arguments is where we're at now. So, yeah, we're on the same page. All right, so this is another slide from yesterday's back and forth. Neil says at the top, he ain't getting the 10th. And then Science Work says, T. Brown, no, that would be making a line from the observer to GP. We can't make a triangle. It breaks the sextant. And then T. Brown says, easy victory. And then here comes Charles. Thanks for the reply. But that's the biggest confusion with celestial navigation. Sighting the sextant is only towards the azimuth of the GP, not the actual GP. And then I write, horizontal is level, straight and flat. You lose again and again. Now you're just needing intention. But break down his words. Thanks for the reply. But that's the biggest confusion with celestial navigation. I didn't know there was any confusion. Sighting the sextant is only towards the azimuth of the GP, not the actual GP. Well, that's interesting, because if you don't have the vertical angle first, you don't have the complementary zenith to zenith distance. So this is so bad of a response that he's saying that the GP from the sun to the observer cannot be known.
Can I say something real quick? Or Nathan's starting the show.
Yeah, make it quick.
All right, listen, they're misunderstanding what you said. You're relaxed in that there's not going to be any proof of a ball coming out anytime soon. That's where we're relaxed at.
Right, I agree. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut, no, live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below the video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, the Adam Meakin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we've all been enjoying a really nice little love-in the pre-show, for those of you who watch it after the fact, discussing our feelings and emotions. It's all been very, what's the word? Very hippified.
Yay.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Let's get into a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence that you can have an elevation angle acquired from a curved adjacent?
Well, you could probably do it, but can you really use it to explore?
No, probably you could do it. It's impossible.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, right, Adam. Go ahead, sorry.
It's geometry statement. Angles are formed with straight lines. You can't form an angle with a curved line. Computer says no, if you remember.
Yeah, Baldwin, you're going to have to give up on this one. This is never going to be an argument that you adopt and adapt into something that can concisely rumpus this point. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, but I'm only basically moving towards you within the argument because terrestrial refraction already fixes it because it makes it optically flat, which is really what you need. But you could still make an angle. It's just going to sit against the globe, so you're not going to be able to really use it for exploration or anything.
Yeah, that's the same exact thing. Adam, do you want to just repeat what you said again?
Geometry requires two straight lines to form an angle. Whatever you're going to do with that curve on, and whichever point on that curve you're going to assume, you're not able to generate an angle. The only way you can generate an angle is to draw another straight line from it to the point on the arbitrary point on the curve you've decided represents something.
You want to give it a third go?
Yeah.
You're going to give it a third go, Arwin?
I think that's just all poppycock. I think it's possible.
That would be a hand wave dismissal fallacy.
You just don't understand.
That would be an ad hominem fallacy.
You just keep on naming fallacies. It doesn't prove anything.
What?
It proves you're using fallacious reasoning.
No, he didn't know what to say back. Got you.
Oh,
We-
okay.
It's a violation of the definition of angle to use a curved adjacent. That's the point, right?
Yeah, the clue's in the title.
Whereas Wally yesterday commented on your comment on yesterday's video, your video from the show, Nathan. He said 22 hours ago, where's Wally? Love that you guys think you need two straight lines. A sextant measures the angle between 2 points, the third point being at the sextant. No flat surfaces in all capitals needed. And earlier on, I asked him, like, I didn't even look to see if he replied because it didn't matter. I said, so what's the horizon mirror for? And what's dip and height of y correction? You know, it's like, no, why would you be, what's the point of the sextant then? What is the point of anything you're doing? It's like his whole comment is like denying horizontal.
Why do you subtract from 90 then?
Oh, hold on. Yeah. Before you get to subtracting from 90. So, in the first sentence, correct me if I'm wrong, I've only heard you say it just now, but you said when measuring an angle. That was the first part. Can you just read it again, that first bit, please?
Yeah. He just gives us his words. Love, he just starts off with that word, love. Love that you guys think you need two straight lines. That's his first line. And then a sextant measures the angle between 2 points.
Perfect. Stop.
Yeah.
A sextant measures the angle. So he loves the fact that we think you need straight lines, and then he goes on to describe an angle. What is an angle?
Two straight lines.
Two straight lines meeting at a vertex.
Yep.
So he's saying, I find it amusing, you think you need straight lines, and then he goes on to describe an angle, which is very specifically two straight lines. What an idiot.
Yeah, he's a prize Wally.
Yeah, he's Dunning-Kruger. Where's Wally? You know, he doesn't realise how stupid he is. Go ahead, 10th.
Well, yeah, 90. When he gets his two straight lines, when he gets that angle, the next part is to subtract from 90 so that you can get the co-altitude. So 90, that's a right angle. That's a right triangle. Like all the books I've got from their site say it's that. So yes, you do have a baseline. It is a 90 degree and you get an angle. Your vertical angle is different than your horizontal angle. The horizontal angle is the one the sextant gives you right off the bat because you're using the natural sea horizon where dip correction is needed, or a bubble sextant or an artificial horizon. Then the complementary is your vertical angle. But you can't get your vertical angle on the boat because that plumb bob would be going all over the place. So you use the steady horizon to get the elevation angle. You subtract that from 90, now you got your vertical angle. It's that simple, Wally.
Well, hold on a sec. Is it really necessary for us to answer these people anymore, or should we just let them?
Oh, it's absolutely, definitely not necessary for us to address this, but Brian's brought it up, and the farcical nature of his claim is to deny that angles need straight lines. It's absolutely preposterous. Dunning-Kruger example.
Right, but like if I said it's I love the fact you guys think you need an animal to get meat. I'm going to go enjoy a steak. People would laugh at me, right?
That is the very literal equivalent of what he's done. I love how you guys think straight lines are required when measuring two straight lines meeting at a vertex. That's what he's doing. And yeah, good comparison.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of laughable now. I mean, it's
yeah.
Just,
if it was somebody more intelligent, I'd say he was just a liar. But he's not. He's Dunning-Kruger. You can't attribute malice to this because he's just thick.
It's not exactly on the sextant, but it's on angles, right? I've had Wolfie in the past few days, right? They all have angle issues. I've had him tell me, when I've asked him, I said, right, what is the plus 3 or 4 degrees of the nose of the aircraft above? He says, it's a thing called relative wind, I think it is, if I remember the phrase correctly. It's just, it's above the air that's coming straight at him, basically. That's what he's saying. He says, I don't address or use horizontal at all. I said, how do you know what pitch you're at? It's whatever pitch is above the air that's coming straight at me, basically, is what he said. I mean, he's just like, I know I can look online at anything to do with the angle of attack in aviation, and every one of them will state 3 to 4 degrees above horizontal. But he's denying horizontal exists when he's in his airplane.
Would he go straight towards the ground in an updraft then?
Like, I know what he's saying. What he's talking about is what I think called, if I remember right, it's called relative wind, right? But relative wind is your horizontal. If I remember correctly, it's your horizontal. Like, airplanes have to fly with the nose they fly, well, with the chord line of the wings above horizontal, which brings the nose above horizontal to go in a horizontal. They can't go in a horizontal without flying with the nose and by the chord line, and obviously the nose has to follow the chord line above horizontal. They can't fly horizontally without that. And that's why they have the nose above horizontal. But
Brian,
Woodby is denying, I just want to say this, Ted, Woodby is denying that horizontal exists when he's up in his airplane. Go on, Ted, sorry.
Brian, what's the purpose of all the instrumentation on an airplane when you can't see outside? For example, the gyro and all the other things that shows where you are and if you're tilting or not tilting. What's the purpose of those things then?
Yeah, the attitude indicator. What's the purpose of that? I mean, does that not reference horizontal? I mean, what's the purpose of anything? I mean, if you're going to pretend that horizontal doesn't exist when you're in your airplane, what is the purpose of anything? You may as well turn off, get rid of all of them. Put tape over them so you can't see them. What's the point of any of these things?
Well, we got a big problem there because in an airplane with a bubble section, you're getting horizontal. And they're saying to the pilot, keep the plane steady while I do this. And the navigator has to do it over 2 minutes because the plane is bobbing a little bit. And over 2 minutes, they get, I think it's every 10 seconds, it takes a reading. And then they culminate all those readings and get the average because the plane could be hitting rough air. But that's all about horizontal. So if they can get a sextant with a bubble to be horizontal, you mean the plane isn't?
Yeah, but this is the thing. You may as well just stop looking at your instrumentation altogether. What's the point? If you're going to pretend horizontal doesn't exist, then you just playing with a deck of cards that you just threw up in the air, like.
Well, that's the whole.
How can you do that?
Well, that's the whole point of the sextant in an airplane. It's some of them have a vertical bubble and then also the horizontal bubble, so that you can get them all lined up, so that you have your 90 basically. I mean, it's so stupid.
Yeah, and
right.
Didn't Charles? Sorry, John, just 1 second. Didn't Charles flat out Matt? Didn't I hear that he agreed that just creates a horizontal, and it's a bubble level, so it's high level and horizontal. According to Charles, are now the same thing.
Yeah.
But they all need to have a conversation with each other, a massive group conversation, because none of them can get in line with the person next to them.
Well, this is what I was saying.
What happens when your argument falls apart?
Yeah, John, and that's what we were talking in the pre-show when Wright just brought up the back and forth he and I had with Nathan, and that's the sextant killed them, and now they're lying about how a sextant works, and that's the arguments are on that, and they're just being made to look foolish. I mean, now they say you can't have a horizontal in the airplane, but on Earth they don't want you to have dip correction to the horizon, so they say no, it's really the horizontal angle on Earth. Well, which is it?
If Wolfie is really a pilot, I mean, he might be, I don't know. I couldn't imagine him walking into another group of pilots and telling them that horizontal didn't exist. They'd laugh him out of the room.
Yeah, he only does it here because he is a pilot more than likely. It's just that he lies over here, but he can't do it, like you said, with his compadres.
Well, the thing about it is that the Charles Flatter math did agree that the bubble sextant creates a horizontal, right? It creates a horizontal, because that's what it does. So according to Wolfie, like that horizontal, I mean, that would mean that the bubble sextant could be pointing down, up, at any, I'm going to say the word, angle You know what I mean? In accordance to his airplane, because horizontal doesn't exist in his airplane. So when someone establishes a horizontal with a bubble sextant in an airplane that he's flying, I mean, that horizontal won't be in line with what they call relative. I think the name is relative wind. It'll just be. It won't be like parallel with the ground, or like it won't be like parallel with the direction of the airplane. But the airplane will be going in any particular direction, in any pitch, because it not matters because there is no horizontal.
No, this argument is much tighter than that. When the navigator in an airplane is using a bubble sextant, the pilot.
No, you're missing what I was saying.
No, I agree with you.
What I'm saying is, how could he use a bubble sextant in his airplane, and the bubble be going like the sextant create a horizontal in the same direction as he's flying? If he's not going, if pitch has nothing to do with angle, with horizontal.
I'm totally agreeing with you and validating your point. So the navigator is going to tell the pilot, okay, I'm going to do a sextant reading. What do you think the pilot's doing? Keeping the airplane level and steady as possible for 2 minutes while he takes those multiple sites. Duh.
But that's the whole point of the chord line being above. Like the whole point is that the reason the airplane flies at a pitched up angle is so it can fly in a horizontal straight line. That's how they fly.
Well, I'm never flying with Wolfie.
Okay, let's move on. Any evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Well, I do have evidence.
You
call a right
evidence.
angle.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a right angle.
That's not evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon.
No, but it's evidence that it exists mathematically.
What?
It's evidence that the geometric horizon of the globe exists mathematically.
Any evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Negative.
But I can show you a right
You're
angle.
going to need a flat plane for that.
Hold on. Brian, I think he's going somewhere. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, I can show you a right angle, if that's any good to you.
Not for a physical geometric... Why are you, Baldwin? What's going on?
I'm just saying, that's as close as you want to get to a geometric horizon. Because they built it off...
No, that's a flat plane. That's a flat plane.
Exactly, John. That's a flat plane you're describing. What I don't understand where Brian's going with this, so I'm going to move on.
Because that's where the claim of the geometric horizon came from. So the only evidence that there is a physical geometric horizon is that we have right angles.
I see. What Brian's saying is, in order to claim that there is, mathematically, a physical geometric spheroid horizon, which would make it non-physical and only existent in the maths, but there we go. In order to claim it, you first need a flat plane and a 90-degree measurement. I think that's what you're driving at, right, Brian? So the 90-degree would be proof that you can move forward from the flat plane to claim a globe. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the only physical proof that there's a geometric horizon at all is a flat plane.
But that doesn't give you a physical... We're going round in circles. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
You're going to need a flat plane for that.
And an R value that they'll require a flat plane to get. Right, John?
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but yeah, it's over.
So John made quite a good analogy in the pre-show about jumping from the Titanic just before it hit the iceberg in terms of being a glober on that journey, the globe Earth journey being comparable to the Titanic, and then jumping off, or for some reason it descended into fast and he got on a helicopter. But nevertheless, just before it hit the iceberg, John's jumping off because this sort of argument with elevation angle is the death of the globe.
How do you know it hit an iceberg?
Well, the black swan was somebody pointing out there was an iceberg ahead. That's what the black swan was.
Neil, you're rumpusing
How do I
him.
know the Titanic?
How do you know the Titanic hit
Who
an iceberg?
cares? We're talking about flat Earth and you're discussing whether the Titanic's real. Probably not. Who cares?
Okay, if the story about the Titanic is real, in analogy, just in analogy, damn it, then the black swan was the navigator looking through binoculars and saying, "There's a huge iceberg ahead," and that's when I got out.
Technically, he said, iceberg, dead ahead!
Just in case he was measuring how big that iceberg was, would he need a flat plane to do it?
Yes, yeah, he was using a flat plane.
The
Joy.
iceberg was the flat plane. Sorry.
Indeed.
Good one, Brian.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I'm happy to report it's over there.
If you're going to use elevation angles to assert any kind of distance, you'll need a flat plane for that.
That's right. They are going to need a flat plane for that elevation angle measurement to the sun to make claims of a sphere Earth. Isn't it epic?
While you're choking, how did you miss that, what Brian just said?
Look, I wasn't going to mention that I'm really ill, and was yesterday, because it shows weakness.
They're going to need, thank you, Neil, they're going to need the one-way speed of light to be measured for their claim.
Well, let's move on to any scientific evidence of gravity.
You got to be joking me. That's like the biggest joke outside of the molten iron core. What a farce.
But you can think of it as a force.
You can think of it as a farce.
But I do give you permission. You can, if you choose to, think of gravity as a force. I'll express the same permission that George Musa expressed to his Fundy followers. Is that not good enough, Brian? You're not going to be thinking of it as a force as a result of me telling you that you can think of it as a force? I give you permission and all that? Is that not good enough?
It's a farce.
He
Math
said farce,
attracting
not
math.
force.
I said
It's
force.
a farce. Math attracting math.
I'm going to give you permission, Nathan, to treat it as a farce.
Oh, well, thank you very much. We can give each other permission for this sort of stuff all
you'll be more
day.
successful than me. Sorry. Yeah, we can give each other permission all day. I think you'll be more successful than me. I'm getting the raw deal here.
Oh, I got this one.
Go on.
It's an invalid description using a flat plane to acquire R to assert a phenomenon that no one has ever seen.
Ace.
As you mentioned it, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, only bested in terms of its ludicrousness by gravity, according to Brian. Is ludicrousness actually a word?
It should be.
No? No takers on the molten iron core? It amazes
Well,
me,
you're
really.
going to need a flat. You're going to need a flat plane because you're going to need to have an R value and all this sort of stuff. That all requires elevation angles and a flat plane and Polaris and all that. GP.
If you're going to say ludicrous, then you know it's a wrap.
Boom.
And Nathan, you can give people permission to say the word ludicrousness.
Oh, you can think about it as being ludicrousness. Well, that's great.
Yeah. How did it get there?
One more time. Was it George? Elbow?
How did it get there?
How did what get where?
The molten.
It didn't. You know, the only reference that we see at the moment, Elbow, to the centre of Earth is when they draw a flat plane so that they can derive celestial spheres and move angle measurements that are taken on that flat plane depicted at the centre of a sphere to the outside edge of the celestial sphere they've hijacked when measuring elevation angles off a flat plane. So they don't have a centre of Earth with a molten iron core. They have a centre of Earth that's a flat plane with a celestial sphere above it and angle measurements that need a flat plane to get them.
I think he was wanting to hear the story.
I actually know how it got there to answer his question.
Oh, you're talking about Thea.
So do I.
Oh, you want to talk about Thea? Go ahead.
No, I'll explain it. Okay, so how it works is you take a piece of paper, you put it into a printer machine, then you print a graphic onto that, and the graphic shows that there's a molten iron core in the graphic. There's the answer.
No. So what they do is they tell you a little story along with that graphic, which is of a fledgling Earth smaller than the one we currently exist on in the heliocentric model. So snuggle down for this wonderful little story that they made up themselves, because on a imminent trajectory for impact was a planet called Thea. and that planet smashed into Earth at a glancing blow, depositing its molten iron core into what then became Earth. The debris then coalesced to form our moon. That's why you get wood. Well, let's not go there. Anyway, get wood from moon landings landing in Antarctica. Anyway, that aside, that's their story. The backstory is a planet in the heliocentric model that would require a flat Earth to make the assertion of the model in the first instance, smashed into Earth, depositing its molten iron core, allowing them to actually have an extended time period for the cooling, which would have taken place on Earth had they not come up with this ad hoc explanation for Theia smashing into Earth, making the core bigger. There you go. And it's true because they made it up themselves. And
yeah, you could bring out a children's book of globe tales.
Yeah,
I should have brought a blanket and a hot cocoa so I can fall asleep.
One more time, Elbow. You're really unclear.
I should have brought in a blanket and hot cocoa.
A blanket and cocoa. Right, for the heliocentric story time about their religion. Yeah, it's just a religious story. It's a fable. That's all it is. It's just a story to go along with the religion. Well, that religion required a flat plane to derive it. Just so you know. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon, for all the fundies who believe the sky is a vacuum called space.
Well, that claim isn't relying on R, but it would require a container.
I don't know if you're right there, because it's got sphere-shaped air in it, right? As part of the...
No, that's only after you make the assertion of atmosphere.
So you're saying the sky vacuum doesn't require the assertion of atmosphere? Okay, fair enough.
No, you need a container to have gas pressure. But when they say that the atmosphere is containing the gas, that's when they would need an R value.
I see. Yeah, correct.
Well, they do state that gravity is what's containing the gas and making a pressure gradient. So gravity would require an R value and would require a flat plane. So the only evidence for what they're saying is a right angle.
Can you remind us why gravity would require a flat plane, please, Brian?
Well, you need a flat plane to create the globe's R value, and gravity requires that R value. Force of gravity definitely requires it.
Both of them do.
So does Einstein. Go on, sorry.
I was going to just say both gravities require a radius. You get to calculate mass of Earth.
So in both instances, with both gravities, they're going to require that derive a flat surface-based R value. So therefore, gravity requires an R value to get to the R that both gravities need. So they're going to need a flat plane for that gravity. Epic!
Yeah, that's already jumping assumptions in their own model. You don't need an R value for gravity. You only need an R value for heliocentric assumptions about gravity. They can't even keep it coherent in their own model. Like they'll always say, oh, what makes things fall down? Well, obviously gravity, right? But down is not the same as inwards. They're inferring inwards and then reverse engineering their thing to match it. Nobody observes inwards anything. At least on the Earth, things either go up or down. And that's how we describe it. We don't describe it as inwards and outwards.
When they assert that gas goes down, go boom boom, enter clown. Dun 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 dun, releasing a balloon.
Oh, absolutely. They'll say gas goes down, right? But what they really mean when they say that is gas goes inward.
Yeah.
They're imposing their philosophy into their own words.
Yeah, they're saying gas goes to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with an R value that requires a flat Earth to get. Yeah, it's all very good. I like this argument. It's good. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
Not yet. They're not had enough time.
Or they just haven't attempted it yet.
And yet they call themselves science.
More like Smurfs.
Nathan, there hasn't been sufficient time to cause that effect yet. Since time causes all things, you need a certain amount of time before you get certain effects. It's called emergent time effects. Okay, I know this because I went to the future after enough time has passed, and I'm here to tell you how it works from the heliocentric future.
Okay. Well, as far as a scientific definition of what your natural phenomena, if that's an effect that you've just described, would be, the first thing it needs to be is an observed effect. You've got to see it happening. So it's not the case that you can say, well, with time, this effect will occur. No. In order to science something, you've got to have an effect actually observed. It's not an effect until it's an observed effect.
And they do observe effects. They just can't claim a cause through a scientific hypothesis.
That's right. They've got plenty of observed phenomena. You look at a star and it does something. Well, that's a phenomenon. It's doing something. Something's occurring. Okay, great. You've fulfilled step one. Now formulate that into a hypothesis with you varying and manipulating that which you assume causes the effect of that effect in the sky. Let's see how you get on. Oh, you don't. You just make up a little story. What's that light in the sky called the moon? Well, that's there because Thea smashed into Earth. Oh, really? And you've validated that scientifically because it's an effect you saw? You saw that moon from Thea coalesce? Or is it just part of a story with a timeline and absolutely no observed effect whatsoever? It's just a story. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius, as we've talked about it so much?
Only mathematical evidence.
Mathematical evidence that require a flat plane to get it?
Yeah.
Don't sound so gloomy, Baldwin.
I have an objection to the phenomenon that they can actually acquire a phenomenon, because they're going to need a description of what's happening. And every description they're going to use line on R if they're a heliocentrist. So I doubt their phenomena as well.
You're saying that when they describe the moon, for instance, it's a description that comes from a heliocentric model with R derived from a flat plane. So even when they describe their heliocentric phenomena, you're going to doubt that as a phenomena because it's described in that model. Is that what you're saying?
No, a phenomenon is something happening. The moon isn't technically a phenomenon. It would have to be doing something to be a phenomenon. And they will require R to describe it within their model.
There are certain aspects of the moon that you can describe as a phenomenon.
Well, I have some evidence for the R value.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. See, I know for a fact that the basis of the R value is measured daily by surveyors. They measure a flat plane Earth with elevation changes on a daily basis, and that is the basis of the R value. So that is the evidence for the R value is flat plane measurements.
I think that's it. Is that all of the housekeeping questions? I believe so. Did we cover everything? Yes, Nathan, we definitely covered everything. I've been following along. Brilliant.
Well, we finally got to them. It seems like we never finished them for a while.
Well, I think that's it. I think that concludes the housekeeping. Thank you very much.
It's becoming more concise though, Nathan, isn't it? That's why, now that we're after kind of getting through so much of the sextant argument and we're after getting through so much of our model, now everything is just going, flat plane. For most of it, we can just say, rather than saying you're going to need R for that, you're going to need a flat plane for that.
Yeah, I like that too, Brian. So there's been a radical change in the responses, the concise responses Brian's just described in terms of the housekeeping questions. So obviously, this iceberg that was you're going to need R for that was the iceberg that hadn't actually been hit yet. Just a warning, shot across the bow, whatever you want to use as an analogy. So that shot across the bow then manifests in all of the housekeeping questions answered with, you're going to need a flat plane for that. So it's a big turnaround. This is a big change to the argument structure of this show in the last couple of weeks, really. Maybe less. Last week.
Nathan, there's something I'm observing happening with the anti-flat earthers. If you can go to Master B, I posted another slide with what was on screen when Charles was in chat yesterday. Let me know when you have it.
Yeah.
So you can see here, there's chat happening below. And if you go all the way to the bottom, I say, I'm citing an expert. Listen up. Now, what's on screen is that article from that book or a page from that book where it says that, we're standing at the center of the earth and we are measuring to the center of the sun. And then he says, none of these is true. They're not listening. They're just here to cause chaos. No one's looking at all the evidence Brian, you, anybody puts up, including myself, and saying, well, I can debunk that. Well, they can't debunk any of it. It's right there. He still babbles on, and right on the screen, it says none of what he says is true about a globe and getting the elevation angle from the center of the earth. This is why they can't be reached, because they're not here to be reached. They're not here for a real discourse.
Well, in most instances, they're just not here. And as I've said in the past, I'm happy with that. No worries. Occasionally someone will come in that wants to build up a little fence to sit on and say you can't prove anything. Well, we'll point out that you'll need a flat plane to achieve any of the models. But that doesn't happen that often at the moment because people who are a bit more sensible from the globe side know they're going to be left in a position like that guy a couple of days ago, where you either start lying about what's required or accept that the Earth is flat. Those are your only two options now. Charles chose to lie.
What's amazing, I'll be quick, Brian. What's amazing is that you can get a book called Nautical Science, and it goes through every part of it. And the guy says, oh, by the way, the language we use and where we say we're getting the angle measurements is not true. Well, you're going to need a flat plane for that is what he should be saying, but he can't say that either. So instead of saying, hey, we measure flat first, then we say we get it from here, he leaves the first part out and says, we don't get it from here. Well, then where'd you get it from? From a flat plane, obviously, because that's what an angle and a 90 does and come from is a flat plane, not a curved adjacent.
Right, so when they're detailing the measurement from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth correlating with the flat Earth measurement they're actually going to take, we formally ask them, how can you have a curved adjacent when you're taking the angle? Obviously you can't, it's got to be flat. But how they actually take it is on a flat plane in the centre of a sphere. Well, there's a massive flat plane in the centre of that sphere working with a celestial sphere above. Well, that has been projected out onto a globe. But the measurement is still being taken from the centre, and when you look at the depiction, it's just a flat plane inside a sphere. But the measurements are being taken on the flat plane bit. Because they must.
Yeah, I think like when they come up with anything official, all they come up with is a diagram of a globe out of one of the sextant manuals or something. That's all they come up with. They don't come up with anything. It's Nathan, help me out here. Sorry, it's confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. That's all it is. So that it's the same reason that while they're arguing nonsense in the chat, and you're quoting to them in the chat actual things from experts, expert navigators, and on screen in front of them is those exact references or citations, whichever. And the reason they're not getting any of this is the same reason as they don't know what the black swan argument is, or haven't known for 2 years, because they don't want to know. They don't want to address it.
It's not they don't want to know, Bri. To me, what Ten's posted, this chat with Flat Earth Math, kind of says where they're at. They're so desperate, they've got to do something to reconcile it in their own head, even though it's going to contradict some of the text, or contradict as least as possible, or at least be ambiguous so as not to contradict the text. And I'm going to read it. So, at 10th man, thanks for the reply, but the biggest confusion with celestial navigation. I'm not confused. But this is his resolution, how he's got to say it to himself so he can stay on a ball. Sighting the sextant is only towards the azimuth of the GP, not the actual GP. He's shown me a navigation book that says No, we're not actually figuring out the GP. It's not going to the GP. It's just in the general direction.
They don't.
I mean,
It's just making shit up.
Yeah. Desperately trying to resolve it in his own head, trying to satisfy that he can meet the criterion. And that's how he's met the criterion, by coming up with that bullshit. Citing the sextant is only towards the azimuth of the GP. That way he can reconcile it in his head, what he's actually read for fact, and how it's not commensurate with the ball.
Meanwhile, he can't measure an elevation angle if he's got a sphere beneath his surface.
We covered this in the pre-show when I showed the same slide in the more blown-up image. I mean, same statement he said. Well, what's the point then, right, Adam? I mean, the whole point is that once you get the elevation angle, you minus it from 90, that gives you zenith of the body, where it's directly over the Earth, the GP, and the observer's zenith, the vertical of the observer. And that is the co-altitude, and that is the measured distance. What's the whole point?
Well, what's going on with them? Sorry, thank you.
Well, it gets worse. I'll post another slide. But so the whole point is, you get the elevation angle first, right? You get the zenith distance, and then from the north, you do the azimuth for the compass bearing, so that you know where you are based on the compass, as well as distance from the GP of that sun or star position to where you are. Somewhere on that circle, you get a second one, you get a fix, you're one of two spots. That's when you're triangulating. Go on, Brian, I'm going to post another slide.
Yeah, I think we're missing something here. The reason that he's stating that the way he's stating it, and he's using all these supposed good manners while he's absolutely making up a load of rubbish and lying to people, is because on his model, he knows they can't use a chord. So that means the GP doesn't work. They need a horizontal baseline. So the GP doesn't work on their model. So he has to assert that they're kind of just aiming in the kind of general direction of where this GP may be. You know, this kind of thing. It's all ambiguous, because on a globe model, it would be all ambiguous, because the two zeniths are diverging on the globe model, and they can't use a chord because that doesn't work with the distances and coordinates. So they have to state that it's only a general area kind of nonsense. You know, so that means when the sun is at -90, right, or a star is at -90, it's not really at -90. It's just a general area. You know, this is what they're at, because they have to make it all ambiguous and poison the well, because their model is bullshit. Doesn't work.
But it's not ambiguous. We've got cited documentation. That's what 10th Man's saying. While the documentation is on screen, he's making it up as he goes along in the chat.
Yeah, but I'm saying he has to make it ambiguous. In reality, it's not. But he's making it ambiguous because his model is ambiguous, and the only way for it to even work in an imagination type way on his model is to use ambiguity. That's the only way.
Well, yes, that's true. But by the same token, they're always working from the centre of that presupposed spherical Earth on the flat plane. So they're going to need a flat plane regardless. So his description, convoluted or designed to confuse or obfuscate, whatever his motivation is, it doesn't change the fact that it's easily cited. 10th Man's given us plenty. And it's never the case that you're going to actually do anything other than if you're on a globe and you think this is a citation that's come from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, you're still working on a flat plane when you take an elevation angle. So it's always going to require a flat plane.
Yeah, but on their model, it only works by accident, according to what he's saying.
Yeah, but he's just made that up.
Yeah, because he's a total liar.
Yes, he's a complete bullshitter.
Hold on a sec. You got to have sympathy for him. I mean, he's in a position where he has to concede the argument before he can enter into the argument.
I have no sympathy.
No sympathy for
Hold on.
liars.
Just go through that before Adam does. John, can you explain what you mean when you say he's got to concede the argument before he can enter into it?
Right. The celestial sphere is relying on a flat plane, so he has to accept the flat plane before he can assert the sphere. It's a painful position if you believe you live on a sphere.
It is. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, it was just that as simple as that. I do not in the slightest feel sorry for anyone that's coming here and lying. I feel sorry for somebody who comes here and is told certain facts and is shattered and destroyed and distraught by that prospect. I would have sympathy for somebody like that if they're engaging honestly, but I have no sympathy for liars. People are defrauding other people, lying to other people, deceiving them.
He's looking for friends, Adam. Come on, give him a break.
Regardless of what he's doing, Neil, he's lying. He's going around lying about what's being achieved because he can't reconcile his globe model without a flat plane first being accepted. That's John's point. So what's he got to do? Well, he's got to lie. That's what I've said. I'll keep saying it. They've got two choices with this argument. Accept a flat Earth because you will require one in order to make your globe model, or lie. Charles has decided to lie. It's bullshit his way around it.
Yes, I know this, but he's looking for friends.
Well, that's my point. He has to lie. It's pathetic. I feel pity for him. I can't help.
What he's looking for is for people, because he did ask you, Neil, and Tent, didn't he, to come over to his channel for a conversation. So you can have this very social and mannerly conversation where he talks absolute total and utter crap, and he gets away with it on his own channel, and you're supposed to be all mannerly and sit there and not see through his crap and not call him out on it, and just have this big mannerly conversation that goes absolutely nowhere about nothing.
Correct, but we would wind up turning into Nathan at that point. So however it turned out when Nathan was on, that's how it would turn out with me and Tent on. But I would never go there. You desire me? I'm on Flat Earth Debate Daily.
Yeah, but with Charles, he holds himself up in high esteem because he's a respected teacher. Teachers are respected. Well, that's because you rely on them, to be honest. Well, that's disgusting. You know, when I say I hope he has his tongue ripped out in hell, I mean it.
Okay, I got the 3 slides up.
I'm not going to, just before Ken says that, very quickly, I'm not going to state what these things are, but a couple of things came my way over the past few days. And it absolutely sickens me that certain things are being withheld from the general public, and on purpose by very big institutions who know they're withholding them. And they're doing it anyway because they don't want the truth to come out.
Ooh, sounds juicy.
I'm not going to talk about it now. Some of it will be coming out. But it's absolutely horrendous that people, like that there's people in positions of power. I'm not talking about the top. I'm not talking like Illuminati or any nonsense. I'm just talking about positions of power who withhold certain information because it destroys their belief system and they don't want it out. Thanks, Ted.
Yeah, no problem. Adam, it'd be good for you to comment as well here. So it started here yesterday in chat. 10th man, agreed. Sextant is a visual angle measuring device. Absolutely. Well, I mean, this is almost redundant. Like, how am I going to use it if I can't see, right? I mean, visual angle measuring. I mean, it's not Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles using it, right? So, of course, it's a visual angle measuring device. That's so funny. So I wrote, Flat Earth Math, why take dip correction then? And then I put, you just lost Flat Earth Math. And then, because there was some silence there for a little bit. And then he responds, because the visible horizon is below the astronomical horizon, AKA eye level, all right? Sextants can also be used with tray of oil, artificial horizon, no dip correction needed there. Did he not watch my show when I did it with Mitchell in Australia? We went through this. Adam was on the show. So this thing here where he's talking about AKA eye level, that's exactly right. And the reason you do dip with the natural horizon is to get eye level with sea level so that you can have as true a 90 as you can get. Whereas when you do a artificial horizon with a pan of oil, it's already at your eye level. You're shooting the same star twice or sun twice, and then it is at eye level and no dip required. So basically, it's the dip correction at sea level brought to your eye, just much like a bubble sextant with a level, spirit level, is going to set that baseline to your eye. The artificial horizon sets that baseline to your eye. But at the ocean, you don't have that luxury. You have to minus dip correction so that you can have that level baseline. And it's just so obvious, right? So, and then, so not visual only, geometric, pan with oil requires no dip correction. You lose again. And then the last slide. And of course, bubble sextants for use in aerial navigation needs no horizon whatsoever. Sextant merely measures an angle of elevation. And he just lost there. An angle of elevation, you're going to need a flat plane for that. Let's see, go to him again. Using the tray of oil is useful when you can't see the horizon, yet the sextant provides a visual angle measurement, divide by 2 to get the angle of elevation. And then I wrote, bubble sextant works like a sphere level, also requires no dip correction. You keep losing. So you see what they're doing is they're ignoring everything in their own books that describes why you must take dip at the natural sea horizon and why you don't take dip when it's artificial or the bubble, because you already have a baseline flat at your eye level. That's the horizontal, synonymous to straight, synonymous to the baseline. But in the ocean, you can't do that. So you have to minus dip to get from your height 14 feet above the boat to sea level, then you have it. Is this clear?
So dip correction, when utilizing the horizon, is used in order to establish a flat horizontal baseline to measure an elevation angle from. That's what you do dip correction for, to get it flat. When you don't do dip correction, i.e. using a bubble sextant, for example, you don't do dip correction because the bubble already established it as flat. No correction required. It's already flat when you use that tool.
Excuse me, tray of oil. He's trying to use terms that makes himself look like I'm the teacher, you're the student.
Okay. He is the teacher. What? That's why I'm so disgusted in his lies.
Exactly.
Well, the thing that I want to hear now, because we've made a positive claim that you need a flat baseline to get an angle, right? That's a positive claim. I want to hear them make a positive claim about the globe that they won't utilize the flat plane to make.
Well, they think they're being clever there because they think that this artificial is a tangent generating device on the top of their ball, which is absolutely fine. And there's not really a discrepancy there. We're not going to deny the physics of the way the water or the viscous fluids behaving. It's when they make the statement of why they don't need dip, lovely. But they make very, very positive assertions when they're talking about dip, why you don't need dip, why you do need dip, as to what dip is. Dip in all of their mathematics, as they bravely came out to show the matching correlations between Bowditch's tables and supposed Earth curvature, and there's a correlation there between the two. And in the later books, they fundamentally state that the purpose of dip correction is because the eye is lining up with the leading edge of a sphere. Therefore, at this point, for them to take all of this maths, and whether it's with dip or without dip, the point is it's all based on an assumption that the horizon is the leading edge of a ball. For that, they're going to need an R value to validate the way in which you would compute this. And to that, I say black swan.
With dip corrections, my Doritos will taste better, says Al Junkie. Thank you very much for the super chat.
I like that.
Well said, Adam.
Someone needs to tell Metabunk and the David Sextant Manual people and many others, because their geometric horizon is only in the maths. And Rumpus even states that. The actual horizon, as they state it as, is not mathematical. It's real. It's
okay, Adam, so when you describe their subversion of the reality of getting a flat baseline to measure an angle, they're saying that they're acquiring a tangent, but that tangent will still have the angles moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Therefore, you've still got a flat base in the middle of the sphere. Correct?
Yeah.
So it still needs a flat Earth, regardless of them saying, with a bit of obfuscation, that no, our molasses or whatever we're using to establish a artificial horizon is actually giving us a tangent plane to a sphere Earth with the angle moving to the plane we will draw out at the centre of that presupposed spherical Earth. It's like, no, that's actually the celestial sphere and a flat plane measuring it. The fact that you can depict the centre of a sphere with you standing on it to make an angle measurement and just say, well, you're not really standing on it. Well, that's where the angle's going to. And you've got an angle measuring device to get it. So where's the only acquirable point? Well, it's in the centre of your sphere Earth on a flat plane. That's what's being done.
None of their angles, all of their stuff only exists, as Brian's saying, in the maths. It's not just the horizon that only exists in the maths. It's the angle in the way in which they're using it only exists in the maths because they've acquired it on the surface and they're then going to translocate it to the centre and use it there. It doesn't exist there. That place doesn't exist. Yeah?
Well, it doesn't, and it does, because what they're saying is at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, when they describe a flat plane that will give you the angles, they're just transposing the celestial sphere onto the flat plane that the measurement comes from, and then saying that the celestial sphere is actually representation of the ground you're standing on. So once you've got your head around the fact that the flat plane in the centre of the sphere is where the angle actually comes from, you can say, well, that's where you're actually standing then. And where are you standing? On the surface. So this bit at the centre of the model is representative of the surface, and it's a flat plane.
Yeah, because they cut it in half. They cut the globe right in half.
Yeah.
Because
what they're actually doing, just what they're very quickly, and I'll leave you back in. What they're actually doing, it's subverting perspective and calling what they're seeing an arc. That's the start of their begging of the question. They're calling what they're seeing an arc, and by ignoring perspective. Go on, Al.
Oh, he's getting into it. Adam, you're off mute, by the way. You've presented.
Oh, yeah. I'm just... Nathan makes a great point there. You say that's exactly what they do. This is what you do. You take your readings on the surface, okay? And then what they do is, oh, look, that's no longer your sphere of vision with your celestial sphere to take your azimuths and that. That's now the center of the ball. And that's now the Earth. And that's why it's so easy for them to balance it in the head, because that's kind of what they allow your brain to work like that, as if that's what's happened. But in doing so, you see, you've gone to the center of the Earth, but look, still at the center of the Earth, how you have to calculate this angle. You have to generate a flat plane around the equator, look, chop the top of your ball off to take the angle, just like you're doing on the surface. You see, it's just optical trickery. It makes it look like it's from a ball, but it's not. This is a sphere of vision. And then they take it there, and as Nathan says, fundamentally, look, even if you take it to the center of that ball, you have to lock the top off to create a flat surface to generate the angle from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's working off a flat plane. So if you say, where am I measuring these angles when they work in this depiction? Well, I'm measuring the angles on the surface. And when they correlate to this depiction, the surface is this circle in the middle. That's what you're actually measuring. So forget all this crap around the outside. It makes no difference that they're claiming that's the ground, because the actual measurement is on this flat surface in the middle, because that's where the angles go to, the surface, and that's where you're measuring them. So this represents the surface.
Nathan, 2 last slides before you round off the show, please. Adam, be keen to
I have something quick to say, Kent, as well. Very quickly. How did they get their distances to the GP of Polaris to create their globe?
Off a flat plane.
Yeah.
All right, so you see here, this is a diagram of an artificial horizon. And that artificial horizon that you see in the solid base there, dark coloring, is level. And you're shooting the sun here, for example, against itself. And the H is where your eye is. And so you're creating a horizontal level at your eye line. And you have to half the angle because you're shooting the same thing twice. Now go to the next picture. Was an artificial. Let me show this and you can comment. So next picture shows an artificial horizon of black glass. Got 3 knobs that you can make set level because it has a bubble level on it. Go ahead, Adam. It's pretty self-explanatory from here.
Before you do, I'm just going to shout out Godzilla37 for the super chat with dipshit correction. I don't know what that means. The chat would be empty of ballers. Okay, thank you for the super chat. Go ahead, Adam.
I think it's dipshit correction.
Dipshit correction. Yes,
yes.
Good. Go ahead, Adam.
It was first of all the slide that's up. I mean, that's what you're using to generate your locally flat plane. Not so much by the balancing really is to cope with the simple fact that you've only got a shallow tray. So you balance it, don't you? And then the way in which the fluid will behave will create a level surface for you to do off. But if you just go back to the previous slide.
Adam, just remember, this one is not the one with the fluid. This is the black glass.
Sorry, so it is for that. Yeah, well, the fluid ones also have those little dials just to cope with the little, because you're using it out in the open just to help you cope with volume. But so that one has to be accurate, doesn't it? Super accurate. The point I wanted to make was just this, just showing you with regards to how, if we're going to have an artificial horizon, it limits the use of the sextant. As Tim nicely summarised, you're shooting the same thing twice, so you have to line it up in both mirrors, and that limits. You can see you've got to cope with the angle above and below your horizontal, so it limits the overall amount of angle that you can measure with your sextant. But that diagram just demonstrates it nice how you're measuring the same thing twice and why it halves your capacity of your sextant.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashed the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Why we have an ever after show? Okay.
Is Nathan's back? He must be. Discord is there.
I am.
Yeah, sorry. Adam, if I was in a boat and I was at the GP of Polaris, with Polaris directly at my 90, and I sailed away from Polaris in a straight line south, right? And I was able to figure out that after 69 miles, statute miles, that Polaris dropped in the sky by 1 degree, which would be 60 nautical minutes, right? Or 60 minutes of degree. And I did that again. I sailed another 69 miles, and I figured out that once again, that 69 mile mark meant that there was another drop of 1 degree, apparent drop of 1 degree of Polaris in the sky. And I figured out that Polaris, when I get to after sailing 6,210 miles away from Polaris. The Polaris was at 0, right? So it was after dropping that full 90, apparent drop, optical drop. Then that would be me physically sailing away in a direct straight line from Polaris. And that's how I would determine the distances, and I would determine them every time I would take an angle. I would have to do dip correction and make a horizontal from my boat, from the water underneath my boat to the GP of Polaris, my original starting point. And after that, I can then decide that the sky is an arc and ignore perspective completely, and then decide that I'm actually at the center of a globe and work the angles back the way. And before you know it, you have a radius of 3959 miles and a circumference of 24,940. But all I actually did was physically sail along a flat surface and took right angle measurements along the surface of Earth to the GP of Polaris. That's where the globe comes from. That's where it always came from. That's the date of their globe. They just don't know it yet.
Because you don't get it from Earth.
Yeah, it doesn't come from reality.
Nope. The 1 degree per 69 miles is what I was trying to say. It doesn't come from the actual ground.
No, it does.
No, go try and measure it.
Well, it comes as when I say it doesn't. It comes from your distance that you move. That's what gives you the 60. When you move 69 miles, that gives you that 1 degree, and that's why they use
1 degree of a star drop, not actually 1 degree of an elevation or a curve. Right.
Yeah, the surface doesn't change. It's only that's changing is the optical to Polaris.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, it's just a 1 degree drop of the star relative to the flat plane you've measured it off.
Yes.
That was actually addressed to Adam. I don't know if Adam wanted to respond to what Brian said.
No, I agree. It's what you do with the numbers once you've taken those measurements. You can validate a ball, can't you, if you take those measurements and assume that the reason for the change is to do with Earth curvature. And like I say, it has nothing to do with distance.
But to do that, you're going to put the measurement at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth to get the angles, which are actually in relation to a celestial sphere. So it's back to, oh, well, I'm drawing out a tangent with an artificial horizon. Yeah, but once you do that, the actual angle measurements go to the centre of your sphere. And where are you holding the angle measuring device? On the ground. So of your sphere model, which bit represents where the angle's being measured from? Well, the flat plane in the middle of the sphere you've just drawn out, because that's the only place you can get that angle from. So that means the centre of your sphere is representative of the ground you take the measurement from. So the ground's flat because that's the only way your sphere can get the measurement as well, from the centre. No one's actually at the centre of a sphere Earth, it's a rock. So where are we? Well, we're on the ground. So therefore that represents the ground, flat.
I just want to state that I knew that Adam knew that, and I wasn't lecturing him. I was hoping Adam would join in with me, and he didn't. He stayed on mute all the time and left me hanging.
It was a lovely summary. I was thinking, well, there isn't really a point to answer. Brian's kind of summary.
I was hoping some improv or something, and not.
There wasn't a point of contention, really. It's what you do with the numbers once you've taken them off your fat plane. Can help you define your worldview, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Once you've taken them off a flat plane. Who'd have ever thought we'd be saying things like that?
Hold on. Your worldview would be a flat plane either way then.
Yeah.
And then you would move on to a religious view after that.
Yeah. You transpose your fundy belief that the measurement you've taken from the centre of a sphere actually correlates to the outside edge of the sphere you've projected up onto an artificially curved surface that couldn't give you the measurement of these angles. But you took the angle measurements, and you took them from a plane, and when depicted on a sphere, it's at the centre of the sphere on a flat plane. Now, that's where you're taking the measurements from. So it's representative of a flat Earth, and you can only take your Fundy sphere belief one step further after you've measured a flat plane.
I think it makes more sense if you say you cut the Earth in half and you have two halves. Back in the day, there used to be an orange. There was an illustration. Somebody used an orange. It's like, but you're on a flat plane there too.
Well, what they did is what I said. Go on, Nathan, that's after.
No, I was just agreeing with Neil. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. No, what they did is what I said earlier. This was step one. What's step one of the nonsense? To look at the stars, say that the sky is an arc and that perspective doesn't exist. That was the start. The whole premise of the start was ignoring reality, which is perspective, and stating a shape to the sky, a place they can't go to and don't know. So they stated that the sky had a circular shape, and that the perspective doesn't exist when we're talking about the sky. That's what they did. That was the start of it.
Perspective denial is key in their worldview. There is no such thing as perspective when you're looking at the stars.
But no,
That's correct.
They apply perspective to sun rays, remember?
Right. Yeah, only in Muppet Vision, though.
Objects. The numbers are only right if it's made up of arbitrary lines from the dirt out. That's why I said it's wrong. The amount they tell you for on the surface, the 1 degree is wrong, because they're actually going by how he just said, degree of drop.
Yep.
Like from an imaginary fucking star. So, I mean, not the
Nathan,
star
I
being
got-
imaginary, but the distance or where it's actually at.
7 more slides in Master B, please.
Oh, wow. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, you got the one with the sun, noon, sun is zenith, directly overhead, right angle. Okay, so here we go. Early morning, the sun is rising in the horizon, 0 angle. Mid-morning, the sun is getting higher, an acute angle. Noon, the sun is at zenith, directly overhead, right angle. Afternoon, the sun is setting lower, an obtuse angle. Evening, the sun is ready to set a very obtuse angle, almost a straight angle. Is this not what happens every day?
Yeah, and as depicted in this, you need a flat baseline to assert any of these angles.
And the maximum altitude is 90.
Don't mention
Can't say
90. Moving on.
Yes. Now, altitude correction. What's that horizontal reference line doing way out there by Jupiter?
That's representative of the actual Earth you're standing on, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the sphere depiction beneath with this crazy blue, what do you call it? Stencil effect. Yeah, that's nothing to do with the actual globe beneath, and everything to do with the flat horizontal reference, because that's your reference. That's the ground.
Yeah. Now, whether you get that horizontal at your eye line or after dip correction at sea level, it works the same way, does it not?
Well, for this measurement to work, you've got the actual position of the star at 90 degrees to the reference. In other words, again, can't work on this sphere beneath. Has to work on a flat plane.
Next slide. So same thing here. They got that flat baseline going way out there. So this Earth that shows a partial arc of the Earth, that's irrelevant at this point.
Yep, totally redundant. This angle measurement requires a couple of things, though. Requires you have a 90 to the flat baseline.
Indeed. And once you get the elevation angle, then the complementary angle, the co-altitude, gives you the zenith distance of the sun's GP to the zenith of the observer. And that is your straight radius. And I'll show you that in the next slide.
This can't be from their books. Are you serious?
Yes,
I'm
this
serious.
is from their books, Neil.
So here we got the GP of a star, Alphard and Regal. And obviously the fix is at the top of the picture. And that's where the navigator holding the sextant is. These are two circles of equal altitudes. The GP of the star and the GP of the observer, those dotted lines is a radius line. That's a straight line. There's no curved radius line. And there's your zenith distance. And this comes by the co-altitude. Once you have the elevation angle with the sextant, then you subtract from 90. So it's always a right angle. No matter what they say, it's always a right angle. Next slide. Here we go again. This is from their books, Neil. Interesting, huh? How about the next one? Really? Is that what's happening? It's comical, is it not?
Very much so, yes.
Last slide. How do you like the navigator and his assistant from the center of the Earth? Oh, I'm sorry, that's from the surface.
Brilliant. All right, epic. With that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.